Moving on, let's dive into our next session, titled From Inspiration to Action, Motivating Participants to Implement Change After Meetings. How often have we left a meeting full of ideas only to find that momentum lost amidst our daily tasks? It's a common challenge, and yet the key to making lasting changes lies in overcoming this very hurdle. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for this session, Evan Blumenthal, professional EOS implementer at EOS Worldwide, and our esteemed panelists. Let's welcome them to the stage.
Thank you. Make yourselves comfortable.
Sit down.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being here, inviting us to participate on this informative panel. I think that as we start, it's important to recognize inspiration is something that we all want and need in varying ways. And in the context of the topic here, from inspiration to action, we want to motivate participants to implement actual change after meetings. Just a quick poll, informal poll. How many of you have been in a meeting that you felt could have been an email? Raise your hands. I know I have. How many of you have been in a meeting and you felt afterwards that you would have rather have been sitting in a tub full of scissors than to have actually been in that meeting? So, I have felt that before. Not often, hopefully, but when we're actually making a difference, we're making change happen, that's when we feel like we're being productive. When we're in a meeting and it doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere, it could be a one-on-one meeting, it could be a team meeting, it could be a larger group setting. It's really uncomfortable, and we kind of question why we're there. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with my esteemed panelists. Before I ask them to introduce themselves, I'll just give you a quick intro. My name is Evan Blumenthal, as you heard. I am a professional EOS implementer. For those of you who don't know what EOS is, it's not the lip balm, not in the context of what I do. It stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's not a technology or a software, it's a people operating system. It's a way of harnessing the human energy in one's business so that you can get more of the right stuff done day in and day out and gain clarity around your vision, gain traction towards that vision, and build a healthier, cohesive team together. So the work that I do is as an executive coach, teacher, and facilitator of simple and practical tools that really help entrepreneurs and their leadership teams get more done. So it's about action, not just theory. So I'm excited about this topic because while I have a lot to share, I really want to hear what the rest of the panel. So I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves. And so we'll go from my left.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Sophie Oriando. I am the founder and CEO of Ritzy Essentials. My company is all about growth. We run new revenue generation. So we're very sales-oriented is one aspect of the business. The second one is the human element. And so when we coach, we always say process, then people. So when we look at the process, does it include people consideration? Does it include the pros and cons of those processes and the effect they will have on our people? And so we take a look at this to maximize the efficiency, not only of the company, but the people, and see how we can actually get them to grow and want to grow further, which is part of the motivation. If we take them into consideration, take their input, they're more likely to want to do things versus being told and say, oh yeah, that's what I got to do. I got to show up and get a paycheck versus going beyond. And so the key for our company is get people to go beyond. So that's me in a nutshell. Looking forward to answer a few questions.
Greetings to everyone. I'm Annie Andrews. I'm on my third job. I retired twice and I failed that, so I have to start something.
Good job.
So I retired from a successful career in the United States Navy. Then after, I was employed with the Federal Aviation Administration in Washington, D.C., and working, of course, in government as a senior executive. After all of that, and for many years, I decided that, I love what I do. I've always mentored, talked with people. So I'm going to do my own business. So I now am the president and CEO of Andrews Consulting Enterprise. And what that is about all the things that I know through experience, like many of you, but working human resource strategies, as well as being an executive coach. A lot of that will work with individuals or organizations, and a lot of times working with women also in leadership, because sometimes they find that they can't find their place at the table. And when they do, they need to certainly speak while they are at the table and stand up, straighten up or square up and speak up at times, because you do know exactly what goes on. So my job and what I desire to do is to empower, encourage, and elevate others to reach their goals and their next step in life, and to find their purpose, but also to find their passion in what they're doing. I look forward, and also with my other panelists, as well as working and answering any questions you have at that time. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Stephanie Bathurst. I'm a PhD clinical sexologist and a licensed relationship therapist. I own a private psychosexual practice in Oahu, Hawaii. My specialties are human psychology, interpersonal relationships, and integrative medicine for mental health. I contract with small business leaders who are looking to build milieu morale in a holistic and psychological way. Thanks, Jose.
Hi, everybody. So my name's Jose from San Jose, California. I am not as educated or as sophisticated as the rest of our panelists, but I am a self-made entrepreneur. I own a major staffing and hospitality staffing agency in the Bay Area. We employ about 400 employees. I started there about 15 years ago, working as a catering attendant and working my way up to ownership. And now I've discovered that the most beautiful part of our life and business journey is being able to not only live the life we want, but also help the people that support our dreams and their dreams together to create a better world, and to be able to bring that energy and inspiration and motivation to as many people as we can. So I've founded a company called Second Chance to Life, which is the one I'm representing today. And my goal is to bring lots of energy, lots of insights and inspiration to as many people as I can, as well as the rest of my team and businesses that I have. So I think motivation and inspiration is something very deep that we need to continue to focus on. So it's really cool to be part of this panel, because I think as I was listening to the last panel talking about technology and how kids and people are really getting lost in the digital world, and our mindset is definitely key to motivation, and our heart is deep for inspiration. So this is a beautiful topic for me. So thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. Before we go to our first question, I just want to add one anecdote. Listening to all of you with such a varied level of experiences, different industries, different types of clientele that we work with, one thing is common, and I'm going out on a limb here. We all work with humans, right? And working with humans requires that if we want to get them to take action, we need to inspire them, because we can get more done in that way. They'll do more. They'll want to be participating more. And that's, it kind of dovetails to the question I was asking earlier. But I just want to share from a personal perspective, part of what I enjoy and what gives me energy and inspires me to do what I do is to help actualize potential of others. And the reason why that's really energizing for me is because my personal entrepreneurial journey has been somewhat inverse of most entrepreneurs. Many entrepreneurs, they have an idea for a product or a service and they kind of get some family and friends together, maybe bootstrap it. Hopefully they can build it to that point of maybe an exit, unicorn status, something of that nature, and then do some more things. I started my career while I was in graduate school at the Fortune 1, working at Walmart, starting the world's largest company with 2.2 million associates globally, 611 billion in revenue last year. And then after 4 years of working and helping manage about 11 different stores, going through a management training program where I learned a lot about how to run and operate a great business, I then went to a family business, which was my family. And I was a 5th generation member in that family business for about 15 years. And the personal dynamics of working in a family business is complicated, to say the least, but there's kind of 3 aspects in that. There's the ownership, there's the family, and then there's the business. And so it was through this EOS process that I was able to successfully ultimately exit that business with a liquidity event 2 years ago that never would have been possible without harnessing that human energy towards a common goal. And so as I was able to kind of be free to live my entrepreneurial life, you know, at EOS, we call it the EOS life, which is doing what you love with people you love, making a huge difference, getting compensated appropriately, and having time to pursue other passions. I have yet to meet anybody, whether they're running on EOS or not, who thinks that's a bad idea, right? So irrespective of what we do. And so with that context, I am excited to work with others to help them get what they want from their businesses and the relationships that they have. And it's kind of a way of giving back. And so I'm excited about this. So let's go to our first question. You know, as we think about understanding motivation, we talked about motivation before. What are the underlying psychological principles that drive motivation, let's say, after a meeting? I'm happy to, you know, and not everybody has to answer. If you have something you want to contribute, that's fine. We'll kind of, it's more of a conversation.
I'd love to hear Stephanie on this one.
Yeah, I'll take it. So I think there's a lot. There's a lot that we can do environmentally within the community. I know the earlier panels today, we're discussing a lot about like building this sense of togetherness and belonging that give people purpose, help them feel proud and loyal for who they're working for and the community and network that they've developed there. When we look into the productivity of mega companies like Netflix and Apple and Google, we know through studies like the Bain study that they are 40% more productive than the average organization. And we ask ourselves why. What is it that they're doing in their organizational structure, or what they're providing in terms of like a social experience that increase productivity levels so much without the number of work hours increasing? Because we know study after study after study, putting in more grit and forcing through a 12-hour day does not increase productivity levels. It doesn't motivate people to want to work harder and think more creatively and invest in the company or stay long term, right? So what we look into and what we learn from these studies is that encouraging the human part of our employees, respecting that they need things like self-care and brain breaks, that their eyes cannot be glued to a blue light for longer than 45 minutes before your brain fog starts to kick in, encouraging fresh food that feeds the neurochemicals of motivation, like GABA, dopamine, serotonin, right? These are easy implementations. Just having like some dark chocolate and some nuts and seeds and berries in the break room to help feed their bodies and their minds and their social souls in a way that helps people feel motivated and want to give back rather than just kind of check the boxes.
Sophie, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, and thank you, Stephanie, for this. I think it's a great reflection of the things that are needed in our surrounding, in our environment. One of the things I wanted to add was, you know, in couples therapy, they'll say couple who play together stay together. I think it applies to employees. especially now, more so with the disconnect, when we're talking about COVID and people working more from home, it's very, very hard to feel that synergy, energy exchange when we work half online, half in the office. I think games very often will help this context. Participation of different things will help get that mental break, the participation from different people, get them to play, get them social together, whether they are in the office or online. We've done several games with different people over the last couple of years, more specifically. I've done it in 9 different countries, and every single company, we had fun. Everybody was engaged in the process at 100%, even those who rolled their eyes when we proposed we were going to do games. So just a suggestion to increase the level of engagement in meeting engagement, just something to consider for your own company.
I'd like to add, also making yourself available. I find that what I had started was called Your Voice Matters. And that's where Your Voice Matters is a volunteer, and anyone can come in around lunchtime. They can bring their lunch and they can just come and talk with you and ask things. And I find that that was important because whether they were in the headquarters or throughout the country, you made it where you can do it by VTC or you could Zoom and anyone can call in, and it's a volunteer basis. And at first, people are worried about, oh, what is the CEO or what are people going to say? But I find people were much more open. They got to engage directly with you and not go through managers and leaders and directors and everyone else that try to keep them out and away from you. And I find when you're engaging with them personally, they don't mind engaging with you, and they're more open that way. And they're more adaptable that way because they know that you care. And having that caring part about you, which I think is just so important, because as you pointed out, Evan, we're all here sitting here, and most of us too, it's all about the people first. And those are the most important resources overall.
Thank you. Jose, was there something you wanted?
And that's exactly, I'll piggyback off that. I think it's the culture, right? I think we see nowadays the talk about money and incomes and quiet quitting and people now coming back to work and all the challenges after COVID. And I kept reading that culture was better than money. And as I look back on how I built my staffing agency, from 50 employees to 400 employees and growing my office team. Again, I didn't really have a strategy or an EOS system, but I just did it naturally. And what I realized was I had a vision, I had my why, I had my what, I knew what I wanted to do, I knew who I wanted to serve, and I knew that I needed people to help me accomplish that dream. So I think that's the important part overall, right, is knowing what the vision is for your business or service or product, being able to find the right people that can help you with that, and then being able to understand the people that are going to support that dream and that vision and those targets and those goals. If we can dream together, talk together, brainstorm together, collaborate, and really not only me come in as the leader, as the boss with my demands and my requests and my purpose, but also to do it together so that we all feel we're on the same journey, and to be able to listen to our employees and the people on our team, right, is really important to know what they're feeling emotionally, where their mindsets are, what is it that they need, I was studying with a guy, Tony Robbins. I'm sure a lot of you've heard of him. And he talks about, like, don't put the shortest guy on the team if you're on the basketball court. Don't put the shortest guy on the team to go do slam dunks. He's not the right person. He could be the best guy on your team, hoorah. But you have to know how to position your team as well, right? And being able to ask them what they like to do, get to know what they need and what they're good at, and being able to position your team. But not just come in with your roles. You have to build that culture, build the culture of understanding and collaboration, and giving the team, making them feel like a family. And that's what I realized with my company now is that as we continue to grow, it's like recently, everybody's coming back to the office, and I implemented a 4-day back to the office rule. And I said, you don't have to come back we've been doing 3 days. So now I said, well, you don't have to come back 4 days a week. But we're going to have this tracker where we're going to be, everybody at the end of each meeting and at the end of each week, they track their own progress. I don't have to be micromanaging. They know what their responsibilities are, and they go every week and they check it off and they report back. And I said, so you don't have to come in every 4 days a week, but it's up to you, because every Christmas there's a bonus based on performance, right? And so that's been motivating, and everybody's back at the office 4 days a week, but they have the freedom to come in only 3 days a week. So giving some flexibility, knowing what they want and need, and then being on that journey together as a family, as partnership, I think is key to business success.
There were so many great insights there. One thing I'd like to add is that, well, firstly, not every company needs to implement DOS. So, and that's fine. It's just a way of running your business more effectively. If you have a great way, keep doing it. It's working. Nothing wrong with that. One of the things that we help our clients do is to help identify those right people for the organization, those people that fit your culture. And the way that we do that is getting clear and discovering those core values of the organization. These are not things that we want to put on the wall or behind the receptionist or on the coffee mugs or on the back of the business cards. It's more about understanding who we are at the core and what we want from the culture of the organization. What are those characteristics, those behaviors, those things that no amount of money would we sacrifice this for, that matter that much? Those are the things that will help you determine if you have the right people in the organization. Because if you're hiring, firing, reviewing, rewarding, and recognizing people based on those core values, then you're attracting those right people the people that fit your culture, the people that you want to be surrounded with. And you're also scaring away everyone else, which is fine, by the way, because you don't want them anyway. They're wrong for your business. They might be good people, they might not be the right fit for you. And so once you have those core values discovered and clearly articulated, and you can attract those right people, you also want to make sure they're in the right seat. Because if they're not in the right seat, to your point before, I used to play basketball. I was a kid and I wasn't dunking, so it's a good thing they moved me from center to forward to guard by the time I was graduate high school. I just stayed the same height. Everyone else was growing. If you don't have the people who get it, who want it, who have the capacity to do that job, not to have a job, not to just get a paycheck, but to wake up every day energized to do that, that's how you can help determine if you have the right people in the right seat. You want to have the right people in the right seat, you gotta have both. So I'd like to move on. I know that we could probably talk about this all day, but there's some other questions that I think will be informative both for each other as well as for the audience. So the next question I'd like to ask is regarding effective meeting design. Are there any strategies that any of you have found successful that you employ to keep participants engaged during meetings so that they're receptive to implementing change post-meeting or after the meeting? So what are you doing in the meeting, or is there a meeting design or structure that you have found to be particularly helpful?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. I think one thing that is important is that when you set out a plan for what you want your people to do, you follow up and follow through. As I always say, follow up, follow through until a completion of an action or a plan. Because if not, if you don't seem that you're interested at some point in time, to have some type of check-in to see how they're doing. Because sometimes people can be stuck and they don't want to come to you, or they don't want to say anything, and they're just waiting. And you certainly know that you have a plan already. You know that you need to move on, but you see things are not getting done. So I think just having periodic check-in, how things are going. Is there any additional questions that you may have? Is there something that we need to change about the strategy? Because let's say if a project may be 3 to 6 months, maybe there's something else that maybe need to be added at the time. And I think it's important to set those goals, set some type of structure, still be flexible in those structure and have feedback on how things are going. But also important in there is let them come to you with even ideas they may have. Because sometimes it's not always about everything coming from the top down. You have a lot of people that out there, especially when we're working cross generations, that have ideas that can come up and be flexible to listen to those and make those appropriate changes. Thank you.
Just gonna
Yeah.
maybe add up to this. So I'm just gonna kind of take this from a productivity standpoint, meeting of what are we doing to get the needle moving. Couple of things come to mind. The first one is having an agenda. Now, I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story. I personally actually walked out from an executive meeting because I forgot what I was there for. True story. I actually walk up,
I love that.
left. And somebody came over and talked to me afterwards and said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why? What happened?" Somebody said Sophie left the meeting. And I didn't even realize I had left the meeting that was going on. Why? There was no agenda. People were talking about the weather and everything without really, and I'm like, I have no business being here. I'm just gonna go. So be clear as to the objective of the meeting would be my number one priority. What are we doing here? What is it for? Number two, if it is to talk about a certain project, what is the status of the project? Who's involved? What is the next item? Do people that are involved in that meeting or in that project, do they need help? Do they need assistance? Do they have the bandwidth to actually carry on with this? Or do they need additional resources? Those are the flexible items that you can pad your meeting with to ensure that, yes, the needle is going to move after this meeting. We're going somewhere. We're not just talking to talk. We're actually putting things in action, and depending on who and what it is or how long it is for, what's the next action plan and when and who's involved? What needs to fall off in order to get this or make this a priority, if it needs to be? Just food for
Yeah,
thought.
I agree. I think that's it. It's coming in with the plan, right? What's the end result? And then bringing your leadership in, bringing in your energy. I'm so like, right now I would play music and dance because like I'm about like bringing energy, even though I slept like 3 hours. It's like you have to be prepared, know what you want before you come into the meeting. Bring your energy. You have to, if you're low energy and you come in, hey guys, we're gonna have a meeting today. You guys ready? Like, what are people gonna say? How are they gonna feel? You have to be able to bring that leadership and get them ready, and then present your goals or targets. And then, as Annie was saying, it's like the feedback. The feedback is the key. Is like the collaboration of talking about this is what we need to do. What do you guys think? How can we get it? What do you need? What are the tools you need to be successful to get these jobs done? And how can I help you? I think that's a big key. And I'll tell a quick story. So I started in the hospitality space about 15 years ago. I had no idea what I was going to do after dropping out of college. And I remember I worked my way up as a catering director into a food service director job as a manager. I managed like corporate dining restaurants in Amazon, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. I fed a lot of the engineers in the Silicon Valley. And I remember one day I was going to a new cafe that I had to manage, and the manager was retiring, and I had to come in, and I was going to replace the new manager. And I walk in, I'm 5 minutes late, and he says, what's going on here? And I said, huh? He goes, you're 5 minutes late. And I said, dude, you're retiring. Like, give me a break, right? He goes, no, tomorrow you need to be here 5 minutes early. And I said, okay, you got it. And I was like, man, I got to deal with this guy. He was in the Marines, he's like hardcore, restaurant manager. And anyway, the next day, he took me to the kitchen and he asked me, he said, what do you need for these people to like? And they all liked him. And he was like a jerk, right? And I was like, this guy is like hardcore. And I didn't understand how people were so kind to him, all of the employees. And he says, what do you need for these workers to respect you and to get their jobs done right. And I said, well, we're going to work side by side. I don't mind washing dishes. Like, I'll do everything because that's the way I'm designed, right? It's like, I have no ego. I'm just, let's work together as a family, as a culture. Let's get the job done. And he goes, no, that's not it. He says, you need to give them the tools they need to be successful. You can ask them, you can, yell at them, you can write it down, you can send them emails. But if they don't have the tools they need to be successful, they're not going to get it done, and they're not going to respect you because they're not going to feel proud. So he takes me in the kitchen. He has, Jackie, do you know how to make coleslaw? She's like, no, Chef Carlos. And he's like, Jose, come here. I'm going to show you how to do coleslaw. And so he goes, do you know how to make it? I said, nope. So he literally, and he's a big guy, right? And he's walking around the kitchen in the fridge, and he's tossing this stuff together, and he puts it together. He goes, Jackie, do you know how to make that coleslaw now? She goes, yes, Carlos. And she wrote it all down. He goes, Jose, you know how to do it? I said, yes. He goes, okay, tomorrow, Jackie, you do it on your own. And they would stand in these lines serving food. I mean, it was hospitality, right? But they felt so proud about what they were doing, and they were confident, and they did such a great job. So giving them the tools they need to be successful, not just being the boss, I think is really fundamental.
I think all of that. Each of us have discussed various components that encourage safety within the milieu of an organization, right? And if there's anything that squashes productivity or motivation, it's anxiety. When we promote anxiety through rigid thinking, through unclear expectations, not providing our employees or our mentees opportunity to explore and be creative and grow in their own authentic way, anxiety amplifies. And what we know about anxiety is that perfectionism and procrastination are direct parallels to one another. So when we feel intense pressure to outperform every single time without fail, or else we're going to experience a significant consequence, it encourages us to continue to push back and push back and push back. And that's not helpful for our employee, who now feels extreme anxiety and potential guilt. That's not helpful for the larger organization in the goals that you have. So clarity, compassion, openness, and availability, playfulness, all of these things encourage an organization of safety and comfort.
Thank you for sharing. One just point to add before we go to our next question is, from a meeting structure and design standpoint, one of the things that we find most helpful is to have a consistent meeting pulse. Mm-hmm. Meeting on a regular cadence, almost like an EKG, right? It's regular, right? And there are spikes, up and down, and some are larger spikes and some are shorter spikes. You need all of them, right? So the larger spikes are maybe those annual meetings, corporate strategy, things like that, or identifying those longer range goals. The kind of medium spikes are those quarterly conversations, those quarterly meetings where you're having those conversations on a more quarterly basis, making sure that you're tracking against your long-term initiatives so that you're not, going off the rails. But then those smaller spikes are those weekly meetings, those weekly touch bases. And that's where really the circles stay connected, because if we can meet on a weekly basis and we have consistency within the framework with the flexibility to address whatever it is that we need to address, that reduces that anxiety. It reduces the uncertainty of, well, okay, what are we walking into? You don't have a situation where there's no agenda and you're like, why am I here? And so there's 5 tenets that we teach to have a consistently effective meeting, and it's very simple. Starts on time, ends on time, same day, same time, same agenda. So if you're having a weekly meeting on the same day, at the same time, every single week, it's got the same agenda. Obviously, it's flexible within the specific agenda items to address specific issues or topics or to-dos or keeping track of measurables or key things that you want to keep track of. So it creates discipline and consistency while also allowing that freedom and flexibility to address whatever it is that you need. And so if you're having that meeting, same day, same time, same agenda, starts on time and ends on time, you're talking about starting on time. We take that Vince Lombardi approach to, early is on time and on time is late, because, if we're showing that we respect other people's time and each other's time, then we should be starting on time and ending on time. So just something that I found to be helpful personally and professionally. Go to the next question. So we talked about motivation. We talked about effective meeting design. We even touched on some of the follow-up and accountability as well. What are the cultural or organizational factors that, or how does organizational culture impact participants' motivation so that the company or the meeting can be effective and so that whatever changes that need to happen discussed in those meetings can happen?
Let's go with that. One of the challenge I've noticed, and it's not new really, but we notice it more so now since COVID, is the disconnect between C-level and client-facing employees. For many companies, I deal mostly in the patch of small to medium up to, maybe 300 employees. The bigger the gap. And so how do we bridge that gap to gain the respect and of the employees who are frontline? They feel they are not understood. Very often they feel that they don't necessarily have the right tools because C-level, CFO don't see how broken the process or the tools are. And so bridging the gap between C-level and the frontline workers could certainly help at making that motivation, at moving the needle after the meetings.
I could talk all day about that, but I'd like to hear the other panelists.
Oh, I agree. I mean, that's. I think that's just the key to the success of any business is being able to get everybody on the same boat or the same car and drive together. We had a challenge in one of our businesses recently, and it affected our staff out in the field, and it was about 100 employees. And we didn't have to do anything about it. We could lay people off, or we can do different things, and it was a big challenge. And we decided to bring them together into a meeting and brainstorm even with the field staff and say, hey guys, we're having a challenge at these locations. What do you guys think? And we came up with some great ideas to show them, one, that we care about them and their families and their bills because they're lower pay grade and it's harder for them. And so we put ourselves in their shoes and understand the struggles that they have. And we also have help them understand the struggles that we have. And I expressed to them that I feel the big responsibility to do the best I can for them, so that because I care. Again, it goes back to the caring. It's hard. Like, how many people and companies now do you go work for or you meet that you feel people actually care about you, right? Everybody's really looking for their own points or their own recognition or whatever it is, and it's not to knock them. We're all in our own world, especially with the digital world and how we're all kind of getting disconnected with social media or doing Zoom meetings. It's not the same as being in person. It's not the same as touching people and really listening to people and having that attention span to listen after 30 seconds and care about what other people have to say, no matter what their pay grade is or no matter what their job is. And that's hard. It's getting harder. It's getting harder for businesses, and that's why you see a lot of them going out of business, or you see them having struggles, or they're just having internal battles. It's getting harder with the technology, and it's going to get even harder with robots coming out and taking away jobs. It's going to be more difficult. So the more that we can stick together and keep our families together and stay on the mission together, I think is really, really key. And that's building that culture and working hard at it every day.
I would just like to add, in reference to just continuing to build a culture, but knowing your people, knowing them. Not always, you may not know them by name. I like to go around and talk with as many folks, and sometimes even if they're out, regardless of where they are, just to pick up the phone and call. I know what they do. I know the job that they do, but how about their families? I find that when you can talk to people and ask them how's their family, and when you go to see them, how's the kids in school, what's going on, somebody just graduated, but getting to know them for them, and they find that because they want to know from top down, what's your vision, what's your strategy, what's your mission, and that if you can get everybody, regardless of where they're assigned, to just give them 6 words that they can remember, that everybody can repeat. So when I walked into one of the organizations, I just simply put, what is it going to be about from top down and bottom up? One, mission first, or actually I said people first, mission always, and you matter. So we know about that. And those are just 6 simple words that everyone could use. But when you say you matter, that's you as the CEO or president or director with the people that you have to provide the tools that they need to hear from you, that you know you're going to get them to where they need to go, as far as elevating them and giving them the things that they need. And when you do that, they pass it along to the next person. Because sometimes you have yours up top and you have those in the middle, and it's your managers that may not carry all of the workload that you want. But I think as you talk with them, give them guidance, and let the people also have a say in these things, and you'll find that impact will go a very long way.
When I think of organizational culture on a macro level, I come back to Gottman's research that tells us that human beings work from a survivalist response at a ratio of 5 to 1. So for every 5 positive things, they are remembered and felt as equivalently to 1 negative, right? And that's ingrained in our DNA. That's not going anywhere. We have a hyper focus naturally on the negative, and we tend to gloss over the positive. And we are also creatures that are made to be conditioned, which means if we are consistently coming home from work with a negative experience from it, a negative attitude from that environment, that negative condition builds over time, builds the negative association with the culture itself, and encourages us to pull away from it just for self-protection, right? Self-survivalism. So I say that because I think from a cultural perspective, we need to embrace positive feedback, constructivism rather than criticism. There's so much that we can ingrain just in the verbiage that we use within the organization itself, changing from more active, I will, I intend to, I'm excited for, rather than I should, I guess, I could, right? Just changing the language can make those subtle shifts to help an environment feel positive and motivating and encouraging.
Very good.
I just want to add one thing that I have found really an important thing to keep in mind is that people need to hear things at least 7 times to hear them for the first time. And when we talk about organizational culture, we talk about the vision, we talk about the plan and the strategies, but also the behaviors and the characteristics that we expect from ourselves and from others. It's important that we repeat them on a regular basis. So if we have our core values defined and we're sharing them every time we're hiring, every time we're reviewing somebody, we're rewarding somebody, core value shout outs is one thing that's a really successful way to reinforce those behaviors when you're coming together. But talk about them regularly at your quarterly meetings. I'm not saying you need it every week, but at least on a quarterly basis, make sure that everyone's hearing the same message so that they're not creating things in their mind in terms of what is or isn't expected. You're telling them, here's what it's like a checkup from the neck up is how one of my mentors likes to call it. It's let's make sure we're in the right headspace for the greater good of the organization. But at the same time, let's make sure that we're acting accordingly. So it's not just thinking the way that we should be thinking. It's are we acting, are we exhibiting those behaviors so that someone else can actually notice it? And so if we are, then we can get more of the results that we want. But a lot of times, how do I change the culture? It's like the culture is going to be there. It's going to be positive, negative, neutral, whatever, but it's just a result of the actions and the mindsets and behaviors that take place.
I love this.
Add one more comment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, off of both your guys' comments, was that the action, as you stated, is so important. So, quick example, I had my sister-in-law who I hired a couple years ago, who came into our office, and we're a happy team. We can sing and dance, and there's no ego, and we're, your win's my win, etc. And she's a great worker, but she started getting into my stuff. She started talking to my bookkeeper. She started creating this bad energy in the company, and sister-in-law or not. I had to pull her into my office because she started to mess up the culture. And so I sat her down, had a talk with her, and then a couple months later, I actually let her go. And everybody in the team was like, whoa, like, why would you do that? I said, because that was messing up our culture. No matter friends or family, business is business, and we have to keep our culture strong. So that action showed them that, this is the mission. This is who we are. No matter who's involved. And another thing was bringing in your customers and your clients. Last year we did 2 big corporate client events to bring all of our customers together. And right before we did that, we actually fired 2 of our customers. So even firing your customers sometimes is healthy for your culture, because how many customers do you have that no matter what, you will never make them happy? They're always looking for a discount. They're trying to give you bad reviews. Like, you just know it's not going to work. And no matter how much money is involved, you're messing up that culture. Because if they spread that bad news, what is it? Every bad review spread like 6 times. Every time you do something good for someone or someone's happy, they might tell one person or something like that, right? It's like, why do you want that? For some money, or just, you're gonna mess up the culture. And so we created these events for our customers last year. Cocktails and music. We did a presentation on how we run our business and all the partners we have. And we just like opened it all up. Like, this is how we roll. Right? This is our team. This is where we come from. This is how much we care. The big topic was how much we cared about them, because a lot of them don't realize they're in their business getting services from us, and they don't realize how much we're going to work for them every day. So we said, well, why don't we just show them how much we actually care? Why don't we show them everything we do, so that we can, be prideful, but also tell them that they're part of our family as well. And sure enough, this year we had a big challenge with a big corporation that we have a contract with, and those clients that came to those events have stood up for us more than any of the other customers that didn't know us. It was just business issues, but these customers fight for us, and they respect us, and they love us, and they treat us like family now. So the culture is not just your team. It's also the people that you serve.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. We only have a couple minutes left, but that was so valuable. I think it's so important to recognize, who you want to be surrounded with, both internally and externally, is so important. Because it's okay to scare everyone else away. It's totally fine. Actually, I just want one last comment on that. Whether it's an internal, an employee or associate, if they don't fit your core values, you can promote them to customer status. It's fine. It's a nicer way of saying you're fired. But just say you're promoted to customer status. You can buy our products or services anytime you want. We just can't work here. So we have just a couple minutes. I'd like to take 1 or 2 questions before we take a closing remark. Anybody have a question that would like to? I can't.
Don't be
other than
shy.
the blinding light.
Don't be shy.
If not, we'll just go to
Everyone's
closing remarks. We have 2 minutes.
Totally get it.
So, all right. Any closing remarks? Any thoughts? Anything that you'd each like to share? Just maybe 30 seconds each, tops.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think when we're talking about evoking change and motivating our employees, we really need to meet them wherever they're at, right? The 5 stages of change: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance. 5 stages of change for motivational interviewing. Figure out where they are in that change process and attend to that. Don't speak to them in a different stage of change, because there's no way that they're going to be receptive and able to hear it, and it's a waste of both of your energies. So try and do that evaluation with them first, get on the same page, and then you have a potential of ending on the same page where it's productive.
Thank you.
I just would like to add, as the leader, be the change you want. It has to start with you. And then others will see that and also follow on what you do. So be that change that you want to be and be the change you want to see.
Love that.
Beautiful.
Support that 100%. Be there.
Yes.
Understand them.
Yes.
Care. Those were all words that resonated with me a lot today, and hopefully they resonated with you as well.
Yeah, I think my last takeaway is that we're all very special in this room because we're all driven for something special. And there's a lot of people that could be here and they're not. And there's a lot of people that sign up for things like this. And there's a lot of people that don't. And so we're the leaders of the world, right? Be the change that you want to see. Exactly. And so we are the ones that need to go out there and share the love and create results and create culture and show people that we care. So hopefully our panel was good for you guys today.
Well, thank you. And, and just as a closing thought on that, it's like what you tolerate, you endorse, right? So think about that. If you're a leader in the organization, you might just be the bottleneck, right? So as goes the leadership team or the leader, so goes the rest of the organization. So model the behavior that you want, but make sure it's real and not aspirational, because people will see through those aspirational types of things. So be real with yourself, hold yourself accountable, but make sure that you set an environment where everyone can hold themselves accountable, because that's really the best way for success. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate everyone's participation.